So as we take a peek at the back, make sure, because you'll see something really similar tomorrow. For questions 1 and 2, we're going to be using this table here, because otherwise you would need the compound interest formula to use. And since we haven't talked about that in here, that wouldn't be real fair. So, we've got to be fair about things. So, let's rock and roll. All right, number 1. Bo invests $6,000 in a 1-year certificate of deposit that earns interest at an annual rate of 5.5% compounded monthly. Okay. What's the amount of the CD at the end of the investment? Now, if this just said, if those two words weren't there, okay, 1-year certificate at 5.5%, I could just multiply 6,000 times 5.5%, add that in, and I'm done. But when we start adding words in like compounded and compounded monthly, minus the extra y, now you'd normally get into a larger formula. But what we have instead to help us here is this chart. So, okay, what are we going to deal with in the chart? I need to know how often things are compounding and the percentage, because the percentages will be over here. Daily, monthly, quarterly is going to be over here, and we're just going to multiply that in. So whatever your price is, okay, of your CD, times that decimal. And the nice thing about using the chart is I don't have to do a second step. Once I have this, that goes ahead and includes all of the interest for me. And I don't have to go back and add it in at the end. So one stop, chart, done, boom, here we go. And so we're going to run into something similar on number 2. Again, a 1-year certificate. Pay attention to the percent. Pay attention to how often it's being compounded. 4%. Quarterly, we'll follow our way over here. A lot of decimals to play with. And what that decimal is actually doing, if you'd see the formula, is it's not only... Here's the thing about compounding, and we're going to talk about this when we go a little deeper, starting here in a couple of days. When you compound interest, it's not just, hey, I made some interest, whoopsie-dee. It's more of, hey, I earned some interest, and that's on top of my stack now. So now when I earn interest, I'm earning on top of that, and it's stacking on top of each other. And it's a really, really nice thing to have working for you financially. So nothing too bad there. Am I going to split these? Well, we'll see when we get there. Let's try out 3, and then we'll decide what we need to do and what we don't. Jenny purchased 95 shares of stock at $90.41 per share. Her online broker charged her a $55.97 commission. What's the total amount she paid for the stock? Real straightforward. How much did I buy? How much did it cost? Okay, I mean, that'd be my straight actual cost of my stock. So if I was able to purchase it myself, which I'm not, you got to do it through a broker, that would be the cost of the stock, but that's not the end. Now, I've got to go ahead and be careful. That commission is not helping you. It's costing you more. So make sure that you add that in and don't subtract it. Now, if I was selling my stock, I'd subtract it because it's taking away from the money that I got. So depending on which side we go, it counts against us both ways. But again, the cost of doing business. The biggest thing is going to be on these is reading what's the question asking you. Is there one part? Is there 2 parts? How am I going to play with this? So like you look at the next one, you're like, okay, I'm buying shares again. 72 shares, $35.19 per share, paid annual dividends. Okay, so part 1. what's the total annual dividend? Now, here, it's not just that 31.4 cents, because I have more shares than that. So I'd take my shares times how much I get per share. But that's it. So when dividends are paid out once a year, I'm just looking at something quick, making sure I did my decimaling correctly here. So that would be the dividend I would receive. And I could choose whether I put it back into my account or if I just took it out in cash. And so once I have that, what is the annual yield? Ooh, to the nearest 100th%. Okay. So my yield is my dividend. So we get to use this for two things. Divided by the price of purchasing one share. So one dividend divided by one share. And it's going to be a fairly significantly low number because you don't get a ton with this. That is not the yield. Okay, that's the decimal version. If we want to get the percentage, which isn't going to be a whole lot better, not even a full percent, but hey, it's still free money. Can't stick our nose up at free money whenever that's going to be. And again, you've got all this stuff in your packet, but it's just nicer to have it here for the convenience of things. 3 and 5 similar. Here's the only thing I'm going to say on this. I won't, bore you by sticking you through all this. I'm still going to go ahead and multiply to get the first part of my sale. But this time, you're going to subtract the $94.99 at the end instead of adding it. Because like I said, when you're buying it, you're adding it, so it costs more. When you're selling it, you subtract it, so you get less. It's not a fun situation, but multiply those to see how much you made or you thought you'd made, and then just subtract your commission. So those are two very similar problems as far as that goes. And so you're going to run into that with both of these. But here's the difference and why I'll do 6, even though I'm not doing 5. Here we got a lot more info. Here's what I paid for my shares originally. Here's what I sold it for. Here's a commission. There's lots at play here. So what's the profit or loss? Okay, so let's see. When I sold for $85.13 a share. I sold 67 shares. So $85.13 times 67. So that is how much I got initially from the sale of my stock. But we got to pay the sales commission. So again, if you're never sure on whether to add or subtract, think about what would make your financial good or bad worse, and that's probably going to give you pretty good guidance here. So this would be what's called my net sale. After expenses or whatever it happens to be. We're not taking taxes out at this point, but if we did, that'd still be coming at this point too. So that takes care of the first part. But, so is that my profit or loss? No. So now, I can take what I sold it for and subtract my initial cost. So still looking good for us to finish ahead here, though. We ended up in the green, which is good. So we're going to take a profit this time. If I'd have done this sale minus cost and I ended up negative, I'm taking a loss. We're just kind of looking at it that way and playing that out. Last couple are what we were up to yesterday. We got some bonds to work with here at the bottom. So Caitlin purchased a $5,000 bond at the quoted price of $75.25. Find the cost of the bond. So again, when you purchase a $5,000 bond, you don't pay $5,000 for it. That's what it's worth at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 75.25, 75.25, and we're going to turn it into its decimal mode. So take that, turn it into its decimal mode, and that will let us know how much we paid for the bond at the beginning. If we hold the bond to maturity, it didn't tell us how long this bond is for, but if I hold it all the way to maturity, they will pay me $5,000 for this bond that I paid $3,762.50 for. So, again, depending on how long, not a bad deal. And so the only other thing we really can figure out here, and I'll admit it, most of the time when you go to buy a bond, they're going to give you this information. What's the cost? What interest rates are you getting? What's the yield and all that? So here, Misty purchased a $25,000 bond at 86. The bond paid an interest rate of 4.25%. Find the interest, the cost of the bond, the annual yield. Okay, three things. All right. Find the interest. I bought a $25,000 bond, and, well, we're not necessarily going to go in order, are we? No, we're not. That's okay. We'll figure it all out. At 86. So again, I take the 86, divide it by 100. I need the decimal mode. So in actuality, what I'm doing is I'm paying 86% of the price. I'm getting a 14% discount to buy this bond. So we actually did the second one first. We got the cost of the bond. Even though I could have done the interest first. Because to find the interest, that's also on the premium of the bond, the $25,000. We've done so much stuff with decimals and percentages this semester, it's like, I don't need to say a whole lot more on how that works anymore. So the cost of your bond times the initial price of the bond to get the cost of the bond times the percent to get the interest, and now we're ready to find the yield, which is taking the interest that you've earned divided by how much the bond cost you. Not initially, not what it's going to be worth at maturity, but what it cost you. So let's see, 0.049, multiply that by 100, 4.9%, 4.94 if you want to go further, would be my yield, which means as I'm holding this bond, I'm making 5% of my money back every year, and then at the end, when I get my $25,000, I've earned that extra $3,500 at maturity. So the longer you hold, the higher your yield at the end would actually be. So that basically is an overview of what you will be seeing tomorrow. So the other piece of the puzzle, and then I can show you where this is all at on Classroom 2 to help out. So one last piece, we introduced the stuff with bonds yesterday, and I'd posted some things on where to find all of this info in one place. I'll pop that back up too here in a minute. But what I'm going to guide your attention to here for the moment is on 13. So on the front of that page that we just did. So this is a little bit of you actually getting into seeing in actuality what some of this stuff looks like and where you can find this information when you go to make decisions on where do I want to take my extra money that I've got. CDs, bonds, stocks, there's a heck of a lot more options than that. And it's going to kind of let you see what some of the differences might be besides what we've done already. So the first part wants you to look up some stuff on certificates of deposit. So it says choose 3 banks and collect the info below. Now normally you'd have to go Google search this, but oh no, you do not have to go Google search this. I'm here for you. So here, when you get to the certificate of deposit part, I have 3 direct links to 3 banks in Rockford here that you can pull up. And you're like, all right, what do we got here? What do I need to know? Well, I probably need to know what bank I'm at. So we got, just a second. I know you can't see what I'm writing because I'm on a different spot. So you need to know the name of the bank. So we got Members Alliance here. If you want to put credit union, that'd probably be good. And so you start to look through and you're like, okay, let's see. $500 minimum deposit for the rate. That's one of the questions it's asking you. How much do you have to put in? Different banks, different amounts. Now here's the thing. Rates. You're like, holy moly, what's up with all this? Term with the highest rate. So I look through my highest rates, interestingly enough, aren't for the longest ones where they get to hold your money. It looks to be these 2. So you may wonder, you're like, okay, so what's the difference between when it says here rate versus APY? Like sometimes they're identical, sometimes they're just a little apart. The difference is going to be depending on, do you stay through all the way to the end? And sometimes it also can come down to that 360 versus 365 number that we use based on rate. So I want you to use the one that says rate. So like for this one, you would be looking at, how many months is that? I can do either for the same thing. I'll only lock it up for 12. So 12 months at 2.956. I'll show you mine. That's all I'm looking for on stuff like this. Find a rate. Find how much you have to put in. Sometimes you got to dig a little bit for that. It's there, though. I've checked all 3 of these. And kind of let you see, okay, I mean, I'm getting about 3%. I don't know if I'm excited about this or not. So, but you've got that in your back pocket. So then you're going to go, and we're going to pick stocks. So, let me jump back out again. So it says right on there, go to NASDAQ.com, which is going to get you here. You can pick any stock you want. If there's a certain company or a business you like, Starbucks or Target or something like that, you can type in for the symbol, or otherwise you can be like, oh, let's see, who's coming by? Hey, there goes Tesla. Let's go here. So let's say I go to Tesla. I like to go and look at it for a year. That's pretty flat for a year, but okay. So I look and I'm like, okay, ticker symbols are just the abbreviations that they use. So if I was using Tesla as my first one, so I'd have TSLA. For highs and lows, all this is going to be there. Okay? Here's your 52-week high and low. You can pick them right off of what's going on here. So it's been as high as 299.29 and as low as 138.80. Now, today's high and low. Okay, right on here as well. Nothing hard to kind of look at. But I would kind of pay attention to, like, how does it compare its high, its low, and where it is now? I mean, it's kind of right in the middle right now, a little bit closer to the low, but it's not like it's hitting an all-time high here. And then sector and industry, and those are backed up there too. So consumer discretionary, which means, it's a nice thing to have, but it's not a necessity necessarily. In the industry, auto manufacturing. What we're going to start learning as we get into the next part of this is looking into certain sectors or industries sometimes can give you a little information or a lot of information on where you might want to invest your money. So we'll get into some of that other language too. So you do that for a couple of these. You fill that out. Nothing terrible. Again, I'm just getting you used to looking at some of these places to make it a little bit easier. And then finally, step 3's got right on your sheet too, CNBC with the bond market. Anything on the page, whether it's the US, a different country, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Let's see. Let's go US. So type of bond, US Treasury. So to get the other information, I got to pick one though. Let's pick a year. So if I pick a year, hang on a minute here. Let's see what we got. So US Treasury, 1 year. Price, 4.9875. Coupon. Now, here's an interesting thing. Coupon depends on how long you do it. Typically, for bonds under a year, your coupon rate is going to be 0. Okay? They're not giving you additional to hold it longer than your time period. Once you go over a year, you'll start seeing a number there. It's like a bonus yield that you're getting as you're doing those. So for my 1 year Treasury, my coupon is 0. And my maturity date, not surprisingly, since it's a 1 year bond, you're like, wait a minute though. Why does it say 4/17/25 when today's the 30th? Typically, again, you get about a 2-week window. They run these for 50 weeks instead of 52. Why? I've never been able to understand why that is. But they sell them at different times, and you can get a little bit of flex in there. So that's basically all you're looking for on those as well. So again, step 2 and step 3, they're right on your sheet. Step 1, you've got right here waiting for you. And if you missed yesterday, or just were in your own world yesterday, there's the link to get into Kahoot for the next unit, so you're ready for the online quiz stuff. And for the bond stuff on page 12, this link to NerdWallet will literally give you all the answers that you need. You just got to kind of look up and down on that page a little bit, and you'll find all of them. Easy ways to get tons of points here as we head down this last month. So if you run into questions, let me know, but hopefully by tomorrow when we do the quiz, you're ready to get this packet out of your way for points. The quiz will be easy with the preview. You get big points, and then we send you on to the next part of